Hello and welcome to Southview Quiz TV. It's finished Tottenham 1, Burnley 0 in the FA Cup third round. If any of us are still awake after watching that game, I'll be very surprised. But hey ho, it's going to be a quick one today. It's going to be we and one other guest, and we're just going to dilute because it's FA Cup. We kind of just go through the latest what's happened, who's played, and whatnot. But we'll dissect it as much as we can. Anyway, but let me bring out the guest for this week, the one and only JJ. JJ, are you well? Oh, he seems to have gone. Is he there? Is he there? He's come back. Can you hear me? After JJ. He seems to have disappeared. Let me see if I can come back. Anyway, it finished Spurs 1, Burnley 0. So the starting lineup tonight was Vicario, Porro, Emerson, Davis, Doggy, Skip, Bentancur, Johnson, Lo Celso, Kulusevski, and Richarlison. It's kind of what we all expected, I suppose. Let me see if I can get JJ back. He's quickly popped out. But yeah, it finished 1-0 tonight. I don't think there was a lot to shout about. It was just kind of one of those scenarios tonight where we were kind of like, let's get going. Let's get going. But it just didn't seem to work. Nothing seemed to just be. It seemed like it was a bunch of players, a bunch of strangers out there. If that's my honest opinion about it, the whole situation. But yeah, so the back four and Vicario, to be fair to them, they played all right. Burnley didn't threaten us much at all. They kind of went through their paces. Udogie, was more, Udogie and Porro are more of a threat going forward. Do we dare say it? Emerson was decent. Tonight. So yeah, he was actually played really well, which is don't want to say it too loudly because people start throwing daggers at me. Ben Davis, yeah, not so much. Ben Davis was okay, wasn't great, but did okay. You there? Can't hear you though. Your sound's gone. No, I still can't hear you. Justin, we did. Maybe I should have not gone live so early. But as I was saying, yeah, Ben Davis and the back four seemed to do okay. It was all right. The rest of them, Skip. It'd be interesting to know what everyone's opinion is about Skip as well, because he wasn't. Without Pape Sarr there, I think we kind of just go through the motions at the moment. Pape Sarr is a really, really big miss. And it's really weird because none of us would have thought this at the beginning of the season, especially the way Sarr's been playing. But Skip and Højbjerg are just not filling in the boots on that side. Even Lo Celso, when he goes there, is not filling it in. It's really quite strange to know that that's thing. And Skip he played okay. He weren't brilliant, but it was that cohesion again. Oh, look, Justin's gone. Hopefully he'll be back in a minute. But yes, Skip, the cohesion there on that right side. Bentancur being captain though, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Glad to see he's back. He's probably a bit rusty now. We're starting to see the rustiness in some of his passing stuff, but just having him back in that midfield, hopefully when Bissouma's back, will it be the both of them? Will it be one of them? That's what's going to be the most interesting. Oh, he's back. He's back.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh my word! I feel like Richarlison. I get just in complete mess. Oh my! I'm so sorry. Well, we were chatting before we went on air, and it was like it just went no as soon as you started. I don't know what. No. So apologies for that.
Yeah, you have to apologise for people listening to me ramble on, and they disappeared.
Well, I'm here now, so they can listen to me waffle on. So go on, then let's crack on. Where were we?
I was talking about. So first of all, I was talking about the midfield, but let's talk about the back four. I just wanted to get your opinion on how the back four played tonight. Generally, personally, I thought it was all right. They didn't really do nothing. They weren't really threatened. The one time they were, an offside was given, but it wasn't. But they never really on target. Burnley didn't really threaten. I think they threatened twice, if we're being honest.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There was the one there that was offside that wasn't offside, and then there was the one at the end where the goalie was left unmarked. To cross the ball right at the end. So I must admit, I was very surprised by Burnley's sort of attack. I thought that they would sort of try and put a bit more pressure on the back line, to try and rush them and things like that. But it just seemed fairly sort of comfortable. What I would say is that if anybody is sitting there looking at that thinking we got a clean sheet and woohoo from it, absolutely not. The Van der Ven was probably just didn't come on because we weren't under the cosh really for it. So, no. I mean, I think it's clear that not only is Van der Ven going to come back, but we need this centre back. So hurry up Spurs with this. Whoever you're going to get, just get him in.
We'll talk about that in a minute, right? We'll quickly go through there. We'll talk about that defender situation. But question for you though, we'll just quickly on that back four. And I whispered it quietly when I was talking. Emerson. Look, I know you have to whisper it quietly, but he played really well tonight.
To be fair, though, yeah, but you're saying that on the basis of a very abject attack. I didn't.
I get that, but
apart
that's
from the
what I'm
offside,
yeah,
and the one at the end. There wasn't a point where, yes, okay, he did his job all right, but you can only do what you're asked to do.
Yeah.
But my worry being is that but even against United, I think Rasmus Højlund will look at that and think, I fancy going up against that. I do, and Rashford will.
I look at Burnley though, right? Who have got a Solanke in form, and he did okay last game as well. For being completely honest, if we're being honest, I know we don't want to say this is Emerson Royale. He's not a centre back. I know we don't want to say it, but the last two games have gone smoothly for us.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, what I would say is that I think he offers the opportunity for certain players to be moved out the door. I think that's the key part about it. I think as you saw, by Eric Dyer not being in the squad, I think it showed that it wasn't an issue so much because to be fair,
coming in for Emerson Royale next.
But I mean, I think we've got to remember he's very similar to Davies. He's average at a lot of positions, but not good in one. It's sort of that case of he'll do a job for you. If you ask him to do something, he'll put in a shift, but he won't put in a 10 out of 10 performance.
What's the famous British saying? Jack of all trades, master of none.
Exactly. I was thinking that. I couldn't remember. That is him and Davies.
Yeah.
Chelsea. That to me is where I think Tottenham really need to start looking at themselves and thinking, are we just going to keep putting plasters over things, or are we actually going to fix things once and for all? Because it wasn't just there was lots of areas up the pitch that I think that could be looked at definitely.
So when you decided to come on after 8 minutes and I was rambling to myself, I was talking about Skip and Bentancur. Now for me personally, I thought Skip had an okay game, but this is my caveat. It shows how much we miss Sarr tonight in that middle.
Yeah.
And it's really odd. None of us would have probably predicted this at the beginning of the season, that Sarr would be a big piece to this whole Ange system.
I totally agree. I mean, to be fair, you could see what Skip was trying to do.
Yeah.
He's trying to get himself forward. He was trying to get into positions to open up positions. But yeah, I almost look at Skip and I just feel that we're in a position where there was all the high hopes. We thought he was going to develop and progress and things like that. And I feel he is a Premier League player. But to me, if I was, let's say, Wolves or Bournemouth or, somewhere of that sort of level, and I had money available, I would sit there and I think Skip can do a job for me. I really would.
But personally, I think for them, and this is even going for them, like even after looking at them, I think they have better players in that position.
But to be fair, I mean, it's more the nature of the clubs themselves. I would probably maybe say, if you're looking on the basis of where
he could do a job at Luton.
He could, but he could also, to be fair, he could, because of the situation they're in, he could do a job at Newcastle because they've not got Tonali, they've got injuries and everything like that.
I
You
get
do
that.
wonder. But to me, I
But
think if they all
that's
got
short
back,
term. Yeah, that's
yeah,
short term.
I
He,
just
he could do a job at Spurs for short term.
exactly. And,
Yeah.
and I think when you look at this game, that is what summed it up for me. You watched him, you looked at him and everything else like that. And it just felt that, yeah, he can do a job in the third round of the FA Cup, but you wouldn't want him in the semi-final. You know, it's as simple as that. You wouldn't. You'd want him on the bench and things like that, you know, and or some of that sort of ilk or somebody else that could come through that could potentially develop. I almost feel by watching Skip now, I almost feel like he's reached his ceiling, you know, in terms of where he is at. And you wonder if a fresh start
I said
could
that
suit
to
him.
Sim we are Tottenham TV, funny enough, and he was like, "No, no, no." And it's quite weird that you've just said that and come out of that statement. So that's quite strange. But I just quickly wanted to get on to Bentancur, captain tonight. Did we start to see a bit of rustiness in his game a little bit? Because he's brilliant, isn't he?
I think we've got to remember where the injury situation he's had. He's played a couple of games, you know, for short periods. Obviously, you know, he came back after the horrible ACL injury he had, and then was out for a few months. Came back early. To me, I didn't think if you were to say to me which one performed better, Skip or Bentancur, I kind of felt Bentancur did. I almost felt that
there was more to it. Yeah. It was more to
me. The captaincy part, I think if you were to turn around, because initially I thought, do we give it to Ben Davies just in terms of the experience side of things? I wasn't sure what Bentancur's leadership would be. But looking at him as that leader and the way, okay, maybe he didn't offer as much as we would normally see from him. But I felt from watching him as a leader, you know, somebody he was pointing, he was telling people where to go, where he wanted the ball to go, where he wanted players to be and things like that. And that kind of is more of a key of what we need from a captain, is somebody to tell people, right, get into that position, go there, go and do that. I'm asking you to do this. I'm going to do this, and so on and so forth. So I felt we maybe lost a little bit of his skill, but I think it was kind of balanced out from his leadership. I think if you'd looked from it,
I can get that.
I don't actually feel there was anybody else in that team that I would have said, oh, no, he's terrible as a captain, give it to somebody else, because I think he led that pretty well.
So I want to go back to Peter's statement here. He said Skip was so bad it was like playing with 10 players. Our top three players is so inconsistent. So I agree with that last bit, that our top three players are inconsistent. They are. It's what it is at Spurs. But what I don't agree with tonight is that I don't think Skip was as bad as some other people on that pitch. And I think I want to get into the other two people that I thought was probably slightly worse than him. Right.
Well, that'll be interesting, because I'd love to know, because I felt there were I agree with you in the sense that I didn't feel Skip was the worst. But what I would say is that he wasn't probably, it didn't seem like he was one of the worst, because there were players out there. And I would say I'm quite surprised you've labelled it at 2, because I labelled it probably at 3, maybe 4.
Okay, go on. Who's your 3 or 4? Go on, and I know 2 of them are going to be in your list.
Okay, so the first one, Richarlison. You know, because
let's speak about Richarlison, because I wanted to speak about Richarlison actually. Let's speak about him. For me, right? So me and Haz, right? I've had this argument, and I keep having this argument with Richarlison fans. He has that chance with 20 minutes into the game. He should be putting that away.
I personally felt he should have just done a lot better throughout. I mean, the chances side, I get what you're saying. I'm just not surprised, because that is Richarlison. It's not, what summed it up perfectly for me wasn't this game. It was the game before against Bournemouth, when Richarlison and Son had similar positions to score. Son puts it away, Richarlison misses, and it's pretty much identical in terms of the opportunity that they had.
But what kind of gets me about the chance today is everyone's telling me he's on form.
Yeah.
And if you're someone on form, I expect you to at least hit the target.
To be fair, I totally agree with that. I mean, they said it in commentary that they thought he was on form, and I sat there and I thought, but you're basing this on form of somebody who's going to score maybe 15 to 20 goals.
Yeah.
And for a team like Tottenham, for the way that we're set up, you can't have that. It's got to be 20 to 30 goals. And that, I think personally, Tottenham are missing. So, to me, I was so disappointed.
I was
because
disappointed.
But then
I
the
thought he'd
worrying
step
thing
up.
for me was watching that game. I've never known a single player to miss Son so much because
So that was going to be my question later, actually. And it was a case of, did tonight show all those people, all those doubters, how much we missed Son? Or was it a case of, if Sarr was actually playing in that midfield, would we have missed Son as much?
it wouldn't have made a difference with Sarr in there, because I think what Sarr does brilliantly is he takes that ball forward and he gives more opportunities in terms of that.
See, look, no one agrees with me, by the way. Look,
yeah, he's an okay player, but he wasn't man in the match. That was Porro, but we'll get onto that later.
Thank you.
In terms of, we answered to your question, the thing that I watched through that game, and honestly, as you can see, I haven't got a lot of hair, but I was going to tear out what was left. Was the fact of that, as much as we were saying earlier on how easy it was for our back line to deal with Burnley, I almost felt it was the same for Burnley, because everything was played in front of them.
Yeah.
Richarlison made nobody made a run. Nobody was going into spaces, and when they did, it was, they were going into spaces with gaps. Did you
see the moment, right? Did you see the moment in the second half? Lo Celso grabs the ball, right, and there's couple players coming towards him. He looks up, and Richarlison doesn't make a move, and he literally sitting there going, "Move, move."
Yeah. No, to be fair, you almost, and we were having a few conversations in the chat beforehand about the frustration around other players, but it's like, okay, but you can only ask them to do so much when your leading line won't make the run to break their line. It's almost as if, well, what do you want me to do? I can't, and it was the positioning for him I thought was atrocious. And the only people that seemed to want to break the line and get in there, I thought, was Udogie, who I thought tried it a few times. And okay, we can expect that he's not going to be brilliant at it, because that's not his job. That's the person we paid £60 million for. I thought you saw it a couple of times with Brennan Johnson, but there needs to be more. But you saw it a bit with Dane Scarlett trying at least something more. I think he to me, in his 10 or 15 minute cameo, he offered more than Richarlison did for the whole 80 minutes he was on the pitch.
Yeah.
So I really looked at that and I thought, we're screwed. We're going to struggle here, because if we are going to try and play Ange ball, that game was slowed up so much because there were no real runners,
and
there was no space, there was no pace, nothing. It was one point in the second half where Kulusevski ran up with the ball. It was like 3 on 2, and he stopped.
Speaking of Kulusevski, so I thought, me personally, thought he was absolutely anomalous in the first half. He was poor. Second half, he was better when he went into middle, but he still wasn't great. And again, I didn't think he contributed as much. But what I wanted to get your opinion on as well is Brennan Johnson, because you did mention him there. For you, was it a case of Brennan Johnson had a good game, but his final end product was poor? Or was it he just had a poor game all around because he doesn't, he was getting into positions. He was mostly on the ball when in our final third, more than Richarlison and Kulusevski. And it was just a case of he was the only threatening one, but he's just not a very good footballer. What's your opinion on it? That's not my opinion. That was some of the stuff I heard tonight.
To me, I know there's a lot of frustration around Brennan Johnson, but what I would say is that there's certain things that I saw in that game that I liked, and I felt that maybe would have been different. If he'd been played differently. So obviously he started on the left, and then in the second half he went on to the right. But I think obviously it's so difficult because it almost felt like that the only person who was trying to find somebody was Brennan Johnson. Kulusevski kept trying to cut in and curl, and curl it into the top corner.
Being predictable as he has been, where he hasn't been playing the number 10.
Yeah,
it's a typical Kulusevski kind of performance.
Yeah, so I did feel sorry for Johnson because he was getting into the positions, Okay. And, you could see what he was trying to do. I think to me, the issue for him is the end product. Now, I think that is something that can be worked on. I think working with Ange, I think that is something that can be worked on. The bits that I found, and I will use Brian Hill as an example, right? Brennan Johnson was getting into the positions to at least ask the questions of what was potentially could be available. Brian Hill offered nothing, right? He didn't try and break the line. He kept coming back. He kept getting knocked off the ball. He kept giving away fouls, everything that. He offered absolutely nothing. So to me, I look at the differences between them, and I look at somebody who's come into our team who is learning, the way that Ange Postecoglou wants him to play. And I feel that there are increments. I feel there's things that I saw tonight that I thought, you know what? Okay, I could be frustrated by him, but I'd be more frustrated, particularly with Kulusevski and Richarlison, because I felt that they just had really, really bad days, and just weren't getting into the positions. Whereas I thought, at least with Johnson, we could see him trying to stretch the defence. There were too many times I felt with Kulusevski where he got the ball out wide and then cut inside, and it's like you're just playing into Burnley's hands, because Burnley just kept squeezing the pitch. Yeah. At least with Johnson, what I found was he was trying to unsqueeze the pitch. He was trying to make it wide. And then when Hill came on, you obviously had him and Kulusevski, and it might as well have just been a line, because they were just so narrow. And as I say, that to me is where I would say that, as I said, I mentioned Richarlison as one of my poor players. I'd mentioned Brian Hill because I think he offered absolutely nothing at all in that game. I thought the moment he was on, we were playing with 10 men. I genuinely just watched it. To me, it was just a kid who hadn't had a haircut in 50 years, just running around because his mum sent him on. He's going to get a packet of sweets at the end of it. I
didn't think he was. I get what you're saying. I don't think, personally for me, I don't think he was as bad as what you're saying. Yeah, I know there was bits and pieces, especially when there was a time where he got in the middle, right? And it looked like he was going to lose, but then he ended up taking 3 players out. And I think Cess was on the left at this time, and he tried to play it to Cess, but Cess is obviously not running because he doesn't want to run and be out for 10 months. But there was parts I thought the problem we've got with, and this is what I find with Hill, the problem we've got with Hill is we don't play his style of football, because actually, when you look at him as a footballer, he's very tidy on the ball. He can pass, but he gets himself into positions, but he gets knocked off very. We'll be all honest. But I didn't think today. Like when I look at it, I look at Richarlison and I go, offered nothing. I look at Kulusevski and I thought, offered nothing. And these are big players, right? And I thought, actually, on the left, Brennan Johnson offered stuff, but he didn't do anything with it.
No, that's true.
Yeah. So I was kind of like, I get what you're saying about Hill. I completely, there's some parts I agree with. I don't think he was as bad as what you're making it out to be.
I've watched Hill quite recently, and to me, I think what we've got to be looking at now, very different to, like Kulusevski and like Johnson, where we've seen glimpses. I just look, when you see certain players and you just think, they don't see the Premier League.
Well, yeah,
that is Brian Hill.
But this is why I'm looking at, like when you were saying it, I was like, did I watch a different game? Because I was thinking, and I get that I get it. I do get it, right? But I thought tonight he wasn't as bad. I think it's because everyone's kind of just thrown the towel in with him and gone thing. But I actually thought tonight was not one of, I wouldn't say one of his better games.
To be fair, if you look at what we asked of him, right? So if you bear in mind, I think he replaced Johnson, didn't he? He was a replacement. Yeah. So when
no. He replaced. Who did he replace? Did he replace? No, because he replaced the Celso.
Oh, that was it.
Which was the strangest substitution ever. But it was to bring Kulu in the middle.
The problem to me is that I don't. When I look at Brian Hill, I look at him and I think, where is your best position? Because to me, I look at, there are certain players in our club who I think suit different leagues. He is one of them.
He is one of them.
I do feel,
because watching him for Seville, right, and especially in the Europa League, was it Europa League? Yeah, it was Europa League. Watching him for Seville and watching how he plays, he's a natural winger outside, needs to be on that touchline. in the Premier League, because we play this 3 men, because of the way we play and the way we are in this country, our wingers are not like that. Our wingers come inside. That's why you have the Mo Salahs,
and
Sons of this world.
And this is why I say, and this is why to me, I watch Bryan Gil, and that's what I'm referring it to. I'm not saying he's a bad player. I feel if you looked at him, he would suit more of a 4-4-2. Where it is, as you've rightly said, a winger who just does that, goes up and down and gets that ball, and that's it. You're not getting any pressure. Whereas how we play, they either do that but they cut inside. They can offer so much more. And to me, I just feel that Bryan Gil offers one thing which doesn't suit what Postecoglou is trying to offer, which is the opportunity to cut inside, go wide, play on this wing, play on that wing, be almost like a jack of all trades. I personally look at Bryan Gil. I don't think he's a terrible player, but I just look at him and I think
it's the way you described him tonight. That's why.
But it's more in the game. I'm referring it on the game. But to me,
and obviously that's what you saw. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not. I saw it slightly different.
No, that's fine. But the thing for me was, one thing we can agree on, and you mentioned it earlier, he got knocked off the ball a lot.
Oh, yeah, he did. But But this was my problem with, and I wanted to get to him as well in a bit, and I wanted to get to this question by Peter. It was my problem with Lo Celso as well. So Lo Celso was on the ball, but every time he kept getting fouled, or he touched, he was on the floor. I think he spent most of the time on the floor in that first half.
I think the problem there, though, and I get it, because Lo Celso, to me, he's the consistent inconsistent.
Yeah,
he is somebody who have a brilliant game and then have a rubbish game.
Because personally tonight, I thought tonight was one of his quiet games, but I wouldn't have brought him off when Ange did. It just made no sense to me.
No. In terms of the personnel, you're absolutely right. It didn't make any sense. Because ultimately, if you were going to go down that route, if you're going to take the Celso off, realistically, you bring on Jamie Donnelly and play him in that.
To be honest, he should have just taken off Skip and put Lo Celso back and put Kulu up top. Because we had the ball. The reason why I'm saying this, Burnley's stats tonight were 10 shots, 1 on target. They had 36% of the possession. They had 353 passes compared to our 619. So we blatantly had the ball. Right, so it was one of them games where you could have just gone with 2 attack and see how it went, like he did against. Who did they play against together? And
I mean, to be fair, it would have been interesting to see whether how that would have set out. But
this comment for me, I called this at half time.
Yeah,
I couldn't understand. Like for me, and this is where I have my problems with Ange. I couldn't see why he didn't try this, because Kulu was just getting nothing on that right.
I think the problem for me, and this is the part that I sort of was a bit frustrated with, particularly with Ange, was if you're going down the route that we're talking about here of change up halftime. Personally, I think what we should have seen was almost a case of Lo Celso coming off, and I know you said it was strange for Lo Celso coming off of Bryan Gil, but almost a case of then turning around to Bryan Gil and saying, right, you stay on the left, Johnson, you stay on the right, and put Kulusevski down that number 10. He did it sort of late on, but the problem almost was it just felt that, as I say, we just didn't see, for me, enough of Bryan Gil to warrant what Postecoglou wants. That is the key part. It's not a case of him being a bad footballer. I don't feel he suits Postecoglou. That's a problem for me.
Okay, so I want to bring 2 more points up before we get on to Dragoson as well, transfer thing. But what I wanted to bring up was, do we talk about any of the subs? Did they make a big enough impact to go, let's talk about them? Apart from Dave Scarlett, which you've already mentioned.
To be honest,
or did they come on all too late?
The only ones, there's 2 that I would like to mention from the subs.
Yeah.
The first one is Ryan Sessegnon. Now, we have to obviously take into account this is his first game back, but I was a bit worried because from what I saw, it was a guy not like the Ryan Sessegnon that we paid the £25 million for. And okay, it is a case of he's probably gingerly trying to get himself back into it and things like that. But what we should have been seeing was at least snippets of somebody who was prepared to run on and try and take people on.
Yeah.
We didn't see that. We saw a guy who kept stopping, kept checking, almost like, I don't feel I'm ready for it yet. And to me, okay, I think we've got to give him a little bit of, credit in the bank because it's the first game back. But to me, the worry being is The worry of that
JJ, man.
is, well, I didn't say it was a lot. I didn't say it was a lot. We're talking about pence here. But to me, what we've got to be looking at is what we are. It's the 5th of January now. Okay. We've got what? 26 days until Tottenham probably finally sign a centre back. You know, and
Cess will be injured February 1st, trust me.
Well, this is the part where I think a decision needs to be made by the club, because I look at that and I sort of, from my perspective, I almost sit there and feel, I know that the club have got, you know, Reguilon back, but I almost sit there and think I'd rather have Reguilon back, send Sessegnon to Italy.
Cess is not going to play left back. That's because I think in the summer, Ange said something about him not playing left back, him and Perisic. And I don't think he's going to, and he's not, I don't think he's, every time you see him in training videos and whatnot, he's always further forward.
If that be the case, he needs to go abroad, because the problem that we have, as we saw in that game, he kept checking back. And that's, you know, to me, I saw that with Hill. It was keeps running to a point and checking back.
So
and
this is
that's a worry.
This is where I slightly agree with you on something, slightly. And when you said he has credit in the bank because it is his first game back, our left-hand side this season, and I've complained about this every week, has been the worst part of our team. No one has got that position and said, that's my own. We've moved Son into the middle, right? And not one, for Richarlison couldn't play out there. Brennan Johnson hasn't had a good game out there. Kulu's not had a good game out there. No one has had a good game out there and gone, where I can go on the right-hand side and go, Brennan's had a couple good games there. Yes, I know we complain about Kulu, but he's had a couple good games out there. So you can see something on the right-hand side. Up top, Richarlison and Son, they've had a couple good games. Nobody, apart from Son, in the last probably couple of games, has made that left-hand side theirs. So
and I agree with you. That is a worry that ultimately we're at a point now where our best left-sided attacker is the one who's playing up top.
To be fair, Perisic, do you know, I haven't included Perisic.
Yeah, no,
Perisic,
it's tough on
because
him
he's injured.
He's not,
So I'm thinking is when Son comes back, maybe it's, if Cess doesn't have to start, he can come on and maybe get his groove back and be on that left-hand side. That's my only thinking. Because Brian Hill's not, like, I'd rather Cess than Brian Hill after tonight.
To be honest, if I'm being brutally honest, I think I'd rather, you know, Tottenham go out and, you know, I mean, obviously we don't know what will happen with Jota. I'm surprised that wasn't done on the 1st of January, but I'd rather Jota, because I think at least that's somebody who, you know, is something different. I just don't, from what I saw of Hill and what I saw of Sessegnon, I just don't feel that they are going to make that position their own either. I think both of them need to go out on loan or one to be sold, and we need Jota in. I'm not saying, now to make this very clear, I'm not saying that Jota is the best option, but I believe he's better than Hill and, you know, and Sessegnon, which isn't saying a lot.
But you got to find, so the problem we've got, right? So let's talk about transfers for a second now, because we've obviously moved on to that segment. Dragusin, I was told by everybody, and I keep moaning about this, that he'll be signed, sealed, and delivered in the first week of January. We've had a game now, so that's not going to happen.
And he played tonight as well.
So again, they're expecting Spurs not to agree a fee, typical. So the biggest worry for me this week is the loan players have all been sent back. So, and now you're asking Hill and Cess to be sent out. And we're not going to find these players a club. So are we now at that point where actually, yeah, we can bring in a defender, because if Eric Dyer leaves, which Bayern Munich, Harry Kane, everybody there, you are going to become Spurs' second team, right? But I tell you what, right? And I tell you, people be surprised by that transfer, right? But I'm not. You want to know why I'm not surprised by that transfer?
To be fair,
it's got nothing to do with his footballing ability. No, they do not want Dyer for his football ability, right? Because if they did, they would be like, we'd be asking questions.
Yeah.
They've got a prized asset. He's in Germany by himself. They've got a player who's at another club, who's his best mate or one of his mates. Come and help this guy settle into Germany. It happens at clubs. Big clubs will do this.
Yeah,
they'll bring in certain players for them to settle.
I think the other advantage he has Very similar to what I said
He
about
won't play.
Dylan Sessegnon. He may not, but I think in effect, because again, the problem that Eric Dyer has in our team, not only the fact he's rubbish, but also the
He's
fact
not a
that he
defender.
can't run. He can't
No.
run. But in German football and European football, it's a much slower game. And he is more versatile. So he will suit potentially there. Let's put it this way.
I don't think he will.
Let's be clear about it. He's not their first choice. From
No.
they wanted Fikayo Tomori, they wanted Trevor Chalobah. There were people that above him. It is like 2 o'clock in the morning, and that's the last one you're left with.
But you see the players you've mentioned there, right? Again, they're trying to make sure their prized asset of 100 million that they spent out on has got someone there at the club with him.
It could be, and do you know what I mean? I don't think they would be too problem with it.
So I tell you who we did it with, which was we did it with 2 players, I think, who that spring to mind, right? Which is strange enough. We did it with Luka Modric, with Chorluka.
Oh yeah, Chorluka, yeah.
And we did it with Son. But everyone forgets who it was with. Kevin Wimmer. We kept him longer than we should. Do you remember they were like this?
Yeah.
And then when Son started to settle,
then they sold him off to Stoke. God bless
sold
Stoke.
him off to Stoke.
but I mean, going back to what you were saying in terms of the situation that Tottenham now find themselves in,
with all their loan players coming back,
this is really
it's bad.
Quite a difficult one because ultimately, I personally think this. And to be fair, Paratici has got a lot of credit for some of the players he brought in, but let's not forget he brought in Jed Spence, okay? And there were alarm bells before he came through the door.
I don't think so. So if you hear the people behind it all, yeah, and even Antonio Conte said...
Oh, I know he said it was a club signing.
He said it was a club signing, which meant basically it wasn't a Paratici signing.
I mean, whoever
and Conte just agreed to it.
Yeah, I mean, look, let's put it like this. I think it's fair to say that whoever sanctioned that deal really needs to look at themselves because that was poor.
But did you see the video? What made me laugh is, did you see the video clip that people were putting out about Spence a couple of weeks ago, or it might have been a week ago, of his performance in the lead shirt? And apparently he was really good. But Daniel Farcar has come out and said, his statement, it's not about what he does on the pitch, it's about what he does off it. Now, I'm sorry, there's sometimes I will take with a pinch of salt of what these managers say, but Neil Warnock come out and said it, and he doesn't badmouth a lot of people in Mr. Warnock. And even when he was asked about it, I think in the summer when he was on TalkSport, I was listening, and he said, look, there were just some things that was how he honestly felt at the time. He's a good player.
The interesting thing about it, and I think to be fair, it should have raised alarm bells anyways, was the tweet that Jed Spence put out where he was critical of Neil Warnock, when they got promoted and he won the playoff final. And I almost sat there and looked at it and just thought, and I must admit,
but Neil Warnock could blatantly see at that precise moment.
I think it wasn't just Neil Warnock. I think it was clear from everybody involved, and it was just a terrible, terrible signing. And I think this is where we have now got ourselves into a position where I think, to be fair, I wasn't surprised with Reguilon coming back because we knew that could happen with the United situation. Obviously, it'll be interesting to see where he sits. I think personally, it might be that he'll either go out on loan or that I don't know. I think Tottenham, from what I've seen, Tottenham had no plans for Brian Hill to come back, for Jed Spence, and wasn't there one more who came back? There was one. I'm sure there was somebody else who came back. Or
I know Reguilon came. Oh, Dane Scarlett came back.
That was it. Yeah, Dane Scarlett.
But Dane Scarlett,
but his was more.
Cool. Yeah,
Dane Scarlett was to be fair, Reguilon and Scarlett were more because the clubs decided to send him back because of the playing situation, not the attitude. And I just look at where Tottenham are now, and I look at this scenario, and I think there's got to be questions asked about what they have done, and particularly if at the end of all of this, Dyer doesn't go to Germany and we don't get Dragusin. Because to me, I look at that and I think It's been made
There'll be
perfectly
melt-
clear.
there'll be
It's been made
meltdowns.
perfectly clear by Ange. He don't play. When you're turning around and starting 4 fullbacks, when you've got a centre back on the bench, that tells you everything.
It's not even a good thing for Phillips either. That's not looking good either at the moment. I know he's been injured, but that's not also looking good. But before we go, right, I wanted to save this bit till last because I want to go out on a positive. Right, and it was part of the transfers as well, but he's gone and got the winner tonight. Pedro Porro. Walker
What?
2.0, apparently.
Do you know
Man
what?
City want him back. It's just the start now, where the rumours have kicked in.
I think the thing is with that,
It's taken us this long to replace Walker, and then Man City want to take the new one off us.
yeah, but the difference being here, and this will be, if we look at it, it's almost a sliding doors sort of situation. So if you remember, the whole frustration with Carl Walker was, and he made it very clear, he was happy to stay at Tottenham. He didn't have a problem staying at Tottenham, but he wasn't happy the club weren't progressing as he wanted it to go. And
Yeah,
sure enough, the
he
club...
said this on an interview as well.
Yeah, and then the club decided to prove him right by selling him to Man City, where he won everything. Okay, so he proved them right with that.
So funny enough, so he said the summer before, right? So the summer before he left, he had said to Poch, because that's when Man City came in for him, which I didn't know, and he had said to Poch, as long as the club's progressing, I'll stay.
Yeah.
Got to that point, they weren't progressing, so he went to Poch in because they obviously had the January transfer window, and he didn't see nothing, and went, "This ain't for me. I want to go City." And then had that conversation, and Poch said, "If the club don't improve, I'll sell you." So Poch agreed to it all.
Yeah, but then ultimately, you could sit there and list all the players that have said the same. I mean, the biggest one example of them all was Harry Kane, who they turned around and said multiple times they could back his ambition, and after 5 years, they proved that they couldn't. So,
What would be the difference in Porro? Because he scored a screamer tonight.
Yeah.
He epitomizes everything about this club at the moment.
Yeah, he does.
He
absolutely does. Yeah. But this is where, as I said, this is where the sliding doors moment comes in, because if Tottenham go down where they have done in years gone by, which is, and then buy the knockoff of every player that they've had in the past, then Porro will go. He will go. It's as simple as that. But if Tottenham do, and this is why I truly feel, although I'm going to put my hands up, I don't know much about Dragusin, but it is a player who Postecoglou has identified, suits his style.
It may not have been Postecoglou. It might have been Paratici.
It may have been, but don't forget, let's be clear about it. Postecoglou will only take players that, he might have been identified, but he'll have seen it and things like that. It's no different. Let's not forget, it's no different. He wanted David Raya. In the end, they showed him Vicario. We're not complaining about that one. So, but I feel that this transfer epitomizes what you're saying. Because if Tottenham turn around at the end of this window and bring nobody in and no one leaves, that to me is where the sliding doors moment comes in, and Pedro Porro will look at it and think, could I not go back to City and actually win things?
I've got a question for you, because you're talking about that as well. Ange, right? I would personally say we haven't played great football in the last 5 games. If not, if we're being completely honest, it was very Conte, but we've won them. If you said, say, Porro is that sliding doors moment, do you think Ange will have that sliding doors moment?
Eventually, yes. No, I do. I absolutely do. And the reason that I say that is because when you listen to him and you look at what he's trying to do,
but his demeanor on the touchline has changed as well, and that's what I'm worried about now, because we're now into January, 5 days in, and he, for me, and I don't know how others feel, people in the chat, and it might be something whoever's watching right now, have a look over the next couple of games, but look at Ange's demeanor on the touchline from the beginning. Say, before we went those first 10 games, even when we were losing, but the last 5 games, and even now, even tonight, he was not happy. You can tell it on his expressions. You can tell his whole...
I think, though, to be fair,
there's something not right.
I don't know. I that I'll disagree with. I thought I saw him as looking as
he
calm as
looked
everything else,
miserable.
and
He
you
looked
know,
miserable
I
tonight.
get what you're saying, but
Yeah, because the
the
football's
thing for
changed as
me,
well. The
yeah,
football has changed, but is the club? My thing is the club right now, right? Is as the other managers come in, it was all rosy at the beginning.
mm-hmm.
Are the real things now starting to kick in? He's now starting to see behind the scenes and everything that goes on, and it's starting to come out in his demeanor and what he's saying. Because the biggest thing, right?
I think to be fair, if you look at what he has said, I don't feel he's been put in a position yet where the club have frustrated him. I don't feel. I think they've backed him in terms of where
the
they
last
have
4 days.
to.
Yeah, but as you said, Dragerson is meant to be here now, and apparently now we're haggling over a fee.
Yeah, I mean, but this comes back to what I was saying, and the thing to bear in mind, right? Postecoglou is very different to Mourinho and Conte, right? Let's look at because you're saying that, but one thing I will give to counter that is let's not forget when they asked Antonio Conte about your 3 points off the top, where and he said, well, we're just lucky to be in the top 4, to be honest. Whereas Postecoglou turned around and said, well, we're only 3 points off top.
But that was before. So I counteract that and go, that was before this transfer. That was before this transfer window opened. Let's ask him after Brentford.
I would say,
and see what situation we're in.
To me, it's Brentford. Are you? Because I don't know. Is that in February?
No, Brentford's the last day of the basically. It's the last day.
I don't think that will matter. I personally feel
he knows. Let's be completely honest about the situation. If he's left this squad, the same squad, like you said, and there's no signings, do you honestly think we're gonna get injuries because this is us this season? Do you honestly think he's gonna sit there and go, we're 3 points off top and start thinking reality's hitting him? But right now, you're right. It's the positive part.
There's a difference.
There hasn't been a transfer window, and this is my thing.
But there is a difference, and I'll tell you what the difference is. Right, Ange isn't going to be stupid here. If you look at Antonio Conte and you look at Jose Mourinho, they come with baggage, right? They come with baggage. If they don't get what they want, they bitch, they moan, they whine, they create a stink, and they get booted out, right? That's what happened with both of them in pretty much every club they've been in. The difference when it comes to Ange, and I feel this is there's an you could say cynical reason for doing it, but I feel that the reason as to why it will be different with him is because he will turn around and he'll look at the perspectives. Now, he may sit there, as you've rightly said, he may sit there and think, I can't match my ambition with this football club. However, you look at what could develop over time. Guardiola could leave City. Ineos could sack Ten Hag, right? Straight away, Klopp could leave Liverpool.
So do you know what? It's funny enough because I said if I was Manchester United right now, before Spurs ruin him, right? Especially if we go through this window and completely not do a Spurs, Man United should just go, forget paying for all their players. That 80 or 90 million they wasted on Anthony, come get bloody Ange out of us. I don't want him to go. Admittedly, I don't want Ange. I love Ange being here. It's just that there's a bald-headed man who's going to make
there is, but I think we've got to potentially look at where it goes if he goes, because ultimately, if you look at what he has brought, it's no too dissimilar to what Pochettino brought, which was it took the deflection away from the owners, it focused it on him, it brought a feel-good factor and things like that, and people. At the moment, okay, people who've seen it long enough know how
this is where I'm going to slightly disagree. So I agree about the Poch stuff, right? But this is where I'm going to go. Ange is not coming from a club like Southampton. Celtic are a massive club. No matter what people want to say, yes, they're in Scotland, but they're a big club, right? And this is a club that he's been working for 2 years. And if he said, I want this person, he got this person.
Yeah. But I think as well, let's maybe take.
I get it's Premier League football.
To be fair, but let's take it back and focus more on Postecoglou here, right? Yeah. Because if Postecoglou decides, I want to go, and in terms of what Ronnie's saying, I 100% agree, but it won't happen. But in terms of Postecoglou as a Sorry, this is how I work. I just spoil things like that straight away. Don't ask me about Santa. But in terms of Postecoglou, I think he's a very clever man. He knows that there are plenty of opportunities that he will be able to look at as time goes on. Do eventually Real Madrid move on from, Ancelotti? Obviously, the Brazil jobs now come up. Does that become a situation? Things like that. So for him, he will look at being able to almost do what Pochettino did, which is do the best that he can that will allow him, if it goes wrong, to be in the shop window. Let's not forget, Pochettino, once he left Spurs, was linked with Man United. He was linked with loads of other clubs, and in the end went to PSG, right? So the fact of it being is he didn't do too badly for himself. Okay, you and I could manage in PSG and win the league, but the fact of it being is he didn't do too badly for it.
It took him a second season to do it.
Details. But the fact of it being is, I look at Ange, and I look at somebody who I think is grateful for the opportunity. Don't get me wrong, I think he is. But I think what he's looking at here is he's made it clear, and he's come out in press conferences and said, we need a centre-back, right? So it's not going to look good on the club if they don't bring in a centre-back, and he's left with Eric Dyer, right? And he's also then left with players he doesn't want in the likes of Jed Spence, in the likes of Sergio Reguilon.
The problem is, I know, and everyone's going to be and especially people that support the way the clubs run will go, you can't get rid of everyone in one window and all this kind of malarkey. But he's going to be left with these players now. We'll be on.
He's saying that, but they can get rid of. Let's put it this way, right? If you turn around.
No.
You turn around, if you were realistic, if we turn around and said, okay, they're going to bring in, let's say for argument's sake, they brought in Jota and they brought in Dragusin, but they then got Dyer and they got Spence out the door. How they got them out the door, they got them out the door, even if it was loans, right? I still feel that people will look at it and go, well, okay, he's brought in, in terms of players with that. And that will be interesting, because if Andy's saying he's done his hamstring, it'll be interesting to see how bad that is. My feeling would be he played 90 minutes. If you've done your hamstring, would you really be playing 9 minutes? So, and bearing in mind, we haven't got a game till next Sunday. So I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if he's saying that to try and nudge the club to get this Dragusin deal. That to me is somebody who is saying we're down to bare bones. You need to get Dragusin through the door. That's cynical, but I think that's what he's doing.
Is he doing the last thing? Yeah.
Yeah, he is. I wouldn't be surprised. But to me, I think what we've all got to remember here, if this doesn't work, if Postecoglou leaves Tottenham and goes somewhere else, the owners have got that nobody can. I genuinely don't believe a single person can then support the ownership. That is my view, because what he has done in terms of the mindset, the mentality, the football and things like that. If Postecoglou walked away at any point and said, look, I needed somewhere to be able to win things, I don't see how anybody can then turn around with this ownership and go, oh yeah,
Look, I give look, I'm not saying Ange's going to leave in the middle of this season. He won't do it. He's going to have to stick the year out of Spurs. The problem that Spurs are going to have is if they come out this window and they haven't got him the defender, they haven't, and if it's true about Ben Davies and they haven't sped it up, and then he gets to the end of the window and he's like, okay, Conte and them lot might have came with their baggage, but what Conte said. This is the problem that we've got as a club right now.
Conte's been proven right time and time again. There's no disputing of that.
That interview that Conte had.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And I know a lot of people, when we went to 10 games unbeaten, and we're like, and all the memes come out and go, oh, Conte was wrong. And 10 games, and you're like, oh, come on, wait a bit. And then obviously the curse Spurs happened. But for me, we'll see out the season and go, actually, Conte was right, because he's behind the scenes, we're not.
Yeah. What I would say, though, with that, I do feel that Postecoglou, because he will want to portray somebody who is like, the next one off the rank and things like that. And he will not want to upset the apple cart. He'll want to do his best with what he's got, because he will still have it in his mind, I believe, that there is opportunities to upgrade. And if you've looked at what has come out, okay, if Pep goes, if Ten Hag goes, as I said, he is going to be in the conversation. It's as simple as that. So
I don't think. So personally, I don't think Man United will take him, because I think they want a massive name. That's them. I'm not saying they're right. I'm just saying that's the way they're looking at it.
But to be fair, if you look at maybe Man City, then I think City would be the one.
It depends on De Zerbi. I think De Zerbi and Postecoglou are there two on their list.
Yeah, so exactly.
But we'll see what happens with there. But Justin, we're going to leave it there, right? And I'm going to leave it on what Peter is saying, because hopefully it's true.
He's right. I hope you're right.
Peter, this is the first time I'm going to say...
We will come back to you on this, Peter. Yeah. If we don't get sent back, we're doing a whole show about how you were wrong.
Yeah, this exact comment
week will be the whole show.
I'm going to copy it, and it'll be on a picture we'll talk about it. But if it does, but no, on a serious note, hopefully he's right. I think he's right. Personally, I do think he's right. I do think we'll get the centre back.
I'd be stunned if we don't.
But it's quite funny if we have to go. If we've tried to get the cheaper option, we don't negotiate the money for the cheaper option in Dragonson.
And then we have to go for the expensive one.
And we have to go for the expensive one in what's his name? Talibo.
Yeah, that would be hilarious.
Or Lloyd Kelly suddenly appears. It'll be one of those.
Or Tosin Adebayo from Fulham, who
I've got a feeling he's waiting for his contract to run down so he can get a free one.
Yeah, to be fair, it's quite interesting
I think he's got offers on the table.
To do that. I find that so surprising.
I think he's got some offers on the table. I think he was talking to clubs last summer. I think he spoke to Monaco.
Monaco was one of them. But I think him and Lloyd Kelly are sort of looking at waiting. Maybe let the contract run down.
So I think Lloyd Kelly will end up at us next year, and I think Tosin will end up in Europe. And I think I
don't think we'll get either of them. I think both will end up in Europe.
I reckon we wouldn't be surprised by the end of this window if Tosin's already agreed a European one.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised with Lloyd Kelly either.
Yeah. Well, because he's injured at the moment, so that might be a bit more difficult.
Again, though, pre-contract, who knows?
But anyway, thanks to everyone in chat. Thank you for joining us tonight. We know there's a lot of other streams going on. We just wanted to do a quick one. We're through. We're in the hat for the fourth round. Hopefully, Arsenal will be out as well if Liverpool can get their finger out. I'm back with Ashmatic on Tuesday, so make sure you tune in at 9:30. And there's a rival show on Wednesday, and then there'll be a preview of the Man United game next week on the Friday. And then obviously we're back next Sunday with another match reaction. But hope you guys have enjoyed. Sorry about the first 8 minutes. Blame JJ. Couldn't get his internet. Yeah,
I had a Richarlison moment.
But as we always like to end the show, come on you Spurs. And big up to everyone in the chat.
Thank you. Big up.